Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are unraveling a seriously fascinating mystery that sits right at the intersection of mind-bending technology and raw human emotion. We're talking about how artificial intelligence actually generates art and what that means for human creativity. We'll be exploring what the source material calls the duality of art. It's a topic with incredibly passionate voices on all sides. So today, we're going to break down the mechanics, the history, and the philosophy behind the whole thing.
Which brings us to the big, profound question, right? Can a machine actually create true art? Or are we just looking at a really fancy, high-tech duplication machine? We know AI relies on massive amounts of data. So if it just memorizes every book and painting ever made and spits them back out, you could absolutely argue it's just reproducing things. But is that all it's doing? To figure out if an AI is truly creating or just copying, we first need to look at how humans have tried to measure machine creativity over the years.
All right, let's take a quick look at this timeline. 1960s, visual art with the Mondrian experiment. 1990s, classical music and David Cope's EMI. And the 2020s, modern AI with double-blind visual Turing tests.
So how did these early machines actually do in those historical tests? Well, get this, 59%. Back in that 1966 Mondrian experiment, a whopping 59% of people actually preferred the computer-generated picture over a real, literal masterpiece created by Pete Mondrian himself. Long before modern generative AI was even a thing, a simple computer program was already winning over the majority of an audience in a blind taste test. Crazy, right?
Actually, it gets even wilder. Only 28% of that 1966 audience could even correctly identify which piece was the real Mondrian. So yeah, algorithms have been fooling us for decades. And in that 1990s music test with David Cope's algorithm, the audience didn't just mistake the AI's piece for authentic Bach. Hilariously, they actually rated the real, human-written piece in the test as sounding too mechanical and computer-generated. You really can't make this stuff up. Our expectations of what constitutes human art have been completely subverted by machines for a very long time.
And you know, this perfectly illustrates why just passing a simple blind taste test isn't really enough for computer scientists anymore. Because passing that might just mean an algorithm is really good at mimicking patterns. Enter the Lovelace test, named after Ada Lovelace. To pass this, an AI must generate a piece of creative work that its own creator cannot explain or predict based on its initial code. Basically, it demands that the AI does something truly novel, pushing past mere imitation and into the realm of the totally unexpected.
Okay, Section 1. How AI learns to dream.
So how does an AI actually move beyond reproducing data to creating something unpredictable? To explain this, the source material uses this fantastic metaphor of an autonomous self-driving car. Think of it as a four-step process. First, the car learns physical laws from a mountain of video data: how friction works, how traffic lights change. Second, to avoid crashing real cars, researchers build a world model inside the car's brain, compressing these laws into a mathematical summary. Third is experience replay, where the AI replays real past events from its memory buffer over and over so it doesn't forget them, kind of like an athlete rewatching game film. And finally, step 4, latent dreaming. This is the magic part, where the AI uses its understanding to invent completely new, synthetic driving scenarios it has never actually seen before.
So the key unlocking all of this is what's called latent space, a mathematical summary of reality. Now, substitute that self-driving car data with art. Imagine a world model stuffed with every book, magazine, article, and every genre of art ever known. By wandering around this massive latent space, the AI isn't just regurgitating a specific painting it saw, it's exploring hypothetical combinations, literally dreaming up completely original creations using complex math. It's actually surprisingly similar to how human artists might tap into their subconscious or their dreams to find inspiration.
Moving on to Section 2. The duality emerges: creator versus the observer.
Okay, so we've seen that AI can mathematically dream up unique combinations. But does it really matter if the experience is generated through math instead of human emotion? The source uses a great analogy for this. Think about a restaurant. On one side, you have the food critic. They enjoy the meal, sure, but they are deeply invested in the ingredients, the process, and exactly how that meal was made. On the other side, you have the everyday diner. The diner just wants a delicious meal. They care about the taste, the convenience, and the overall experience of eating it. We see the exact same thing in software. The developer cares about the coding language, while the user just cares if the app solves their problem.
And you know what? This restaurant analogy maps perfectly onto the modern debate surrounding human and AI art. The critic is the creator. The creator is heavily focused on the craft, the messy process, the compensation they deserve, and the intangible elements like the energy of a live musical performance. But the diner? The diner is the observer. The observer is primarily focused on the final experience. How does the piece impact them personally? How does it make them feel? What memories does it trigger? For them, it's all about a highly personal, emotional connection to the end product.
Now, this duality naturally leads to some massive questions about economics. How does compensation even work when an AI generates the art? Well, according to the current system, highlighted in our source material, the AI vendor is compensated upon the initial purchase, or for the time spent using the AI. Legally and economically, it functions a lot like a traditional artist buying a paintbrush, or a musician buying a new guitar. The vendor gets paid for the tool, but they absolutely do not receive ongoing royalties or compensation for the success of the art that the user eventually generates with that tool.
So, taking all these practicalities and his fundamental duality into account, where does that leave us? The source suggests a really practical path forward, a need for separation. Basically, to respect both the creator's dedication to the human process and the observer's right to just enjoy an experience, we might need to establish entirely new categories and genres. We could have distinct classifications for purely human-generated art, purely AI-generated art, and joint effort artworks. This way, credit goes exactly where it's due, the human process is protected, and the audience knows exactly what kind of experience they are stepping into.
But at the end of the day, when you strip away the legalities, the complex math, and all those historical Turing tests, you are just left with the core human experience. And our source material sums up the observer's perspective perfectly with this quote: "If it touches you, it's art, period." For the casual observer, that connection is what matters most. Whether a piece of music or a painting was agonized over by a human or calculated by an algorithm exploring a latent space, if it successfully makes you feel something real, it's achieved the fundamental goal of art.
So we've unraveled how AI actually dreams, the wild history of machine art, and that deep divide between the process and the experience. Now it all comes down to you. When you look at a beautiful image or hear a moving piece of music, are you wearing the hat of the creator, dissecting the process and the craft, or are you wearing the hat of the observer, simply letting the experience wash over you? Or hey, maybe you're a bit of both. It's a duality that has been part of the human condition since the beginning, and as AI keeps evolving, it's a question we're all going to have to answer for ourselves. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.